Welcome back to the galley, everyone. It's so good to have you here. Go ahead, pull up a seat, metaphorically speaking, of course, and let's get comfortable. Today isn't just about tips, it's about a conversation that might just save your life, or the life of someone you love. You know, people often ask me what my favorite part of being a lead flight attendant is. They expect me to say the sun rises over the Swiss Alps or the shopping in Paris. But truthfully, it's the quiet hours. It's that 3 a.m. stretch on a 14-hour haul from Los Angeles to Sydney. The cabin lights are dimmed to a soft, moody blue. The only sound is the constant, low-frequency hum of the massive GE engines. A sound that after 12 years feels more like a heartbeat than a machine. I remember one particular flight about 6 years ago. Most of the passengers were tucked under those thin polyester blankets, lost in a cinematic fog or deep sleep. I was standing in the aft galley, the smell of filtered coffee and that faint, metallic airplane smell hanging in the air. I was stretching my own legs, because even as crew, we feel the weight of the altitude. When a gentleman named Mr. Bennett walked back. He was about 70, a retired school teacher with the kindest eyes. He was rubbing his right calf, just a gentle, rhythmic kneading. He looked at me and said, "Elena, I think I just have a bit of a cramp. Must be the seat pitch, right?" He chuckled, but I saw the way he winced. My heart sank. I've seen that specific look too many times. I spent the next 20 minutes talking with him, getting him hydrated, and making sure he didn't do the one thing most people do, rub it harder. That night stayed with me, because Mr. Bennett did everything right by 1990 standards. But the world of travel has changed, and that's why we're having this deep dive today. I want to share with you the routine I've built over a decade, the same one I walked my own mother through just last week before she flew to visit her sister. Now, I want you to really lean in and listen to this part, because it's something the airlines don't exactly put in the colorful safety brochures. We're going to talk about the invisible passenger. That is my personal name for deep vein thrombosis, or DVT. To understand why this is such a threat today, we have to look at how the industry has evolved over the last 30 years. When I first started, and certainly back in the golden age of flight, the cabins were configured differently. You had more real estate for your legs. But as the economics of flying shifted, the seats got closer, the foam got thinner, and the space for your blood to circulate effectively began to shrink. We call it densification in the industry. But for you and me, it means our bodies are being put into a pressurized stasis for longer periods than ever before in human history. You see, your body wasn't designed to sit at 35,000 feet in a pressurized tube for 15 hours. When you're up there, the air is incredibly dry, often less than 10% humidity. That's drier than the Sahara Desert. What happens is your blood actually begins to thicken. It becomes more viscous, like slow-moving molasses instead of a free-flowing stream. Combine that thick blood with the fact that your lower legs are tucked into a tight space, and you create the perfect environment for a clot to form. It's like a slow-moving traffic jam in your veins. The blood pools around the valves in your calves, and because you aren't walking around, your calf muscles, which I like to call your second heart, aren't pumping that blood back up to your chest. I remember talking to a veteran pilot who started in the late 70s. He told me that back then, passengers moved around more, because there weren't individual TV screens at every seat. You had to get up to stretch, to talk, to look out a different window. Today, we are mesmerized by the screens. We sit perfectly still for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time, completely unaware that the invisible passenger is starting to settle in our lower limbs. This is why I'm so passionate about this. I've watched the seat pitch go from 34 inches down to 30 or even 28 in some ultra-low-cost carriers. Every inch we lose is an inch of safety we have to reclaim through our own habits. So, when we talk about blood clots, don't think of it as a medical freak accident. Think of it as a predictable physiological response to a modern environment. But here is the good news, and I want you to hear this clearly. You are not helpless. My 12-year routine is designed to outsmart the physics of the cabin. Before we move into the actual physical movements, I want you to take a second and just feel your feet right now. Are they cold? Are they tucked under your chair? Just becoming aware of your limbs is the first step in the Elena method. We are going to turn your seat from a cramped box into a personal health clinic. Are you ready? Because we're just getting started. And the why behind what we do next is the most important part of the journey. Now, I want to take a moment and talk about what's actually happening inside your legs right now. You see, your heart is a magnificent pump. It's strong, it's tireless, but it has a bit of a struggle when it comes to the return trip. It's easy to get blood down to your toes. Gravity does half the work for you. But getting that blood back up, all the way from your ankles, through your knees, past your hips, and back to your chest, I call this the stagnant pond theory. Imagine a beautiful, clear mountain stream. The water is bubbling, it's moving, it's full of oxygen. That's your blood when you're walking through the terminal. But the moment you sit down in that narrow seat and buckle up for safety, that stream hits a dam. Your knees are bent, your hips are flexed at a 90-degree angle, and suddenly, that crisp stream turns into a stagnant pond. When water stops moving, it gets thick. It gets cloudy. In your veins, that cloudiness is actually the beginning of a microscopic clot. You've heard the flight attendants say it 1,000 times. Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened. On the surface, this is about turbulence. It's about keeping you from hitting the ceiling if we hit a pocket of rough air. While safety is paramount, there's a hidden logistical layer here. The airlines want you in your seat because a static cabin is a manageable cabin. If everyone is up, wandering to prevent DVT, the narrow aisles become a liability. It slows down the meal service. It creates weight and balance shifts. And it increases the passenger manifest complexity. Now, let's talk about that word, the manifest. It sounds like such a cold, technical term, doesn't it? The history of the passenger manifest actually dates back to maritime law in the 18th century. Originally, it was a handwritten ledger used by sea captains to account for every soul on board in case of a shipwreck. In the early days of aviation, it was a simple clipboard. Today, it's a sophisticated digital legal document. If I have to perform a head count because people are wandering the aisles too much and it doesn't match the manifest, the pilots actually have to report a security discrepancy. It's a massive headache for the crew, which is why we're trained to keep you tucked in. So, how do you handle this without being a problem passenger or risking a clot? You follow the 15-minute pulse. Every 15 minutes, even while buckled in, you are going to perform what I call the stealth flex. You aren't getting up and blocking the galley, which I'll tell you right now is the fastest way to get a grumpy look from a tired flight attendant. But you are engaging your calf muscles. You are squeezing them for 5 seconds, then releasing. This mimics the action of walking and breathes life back into that stagnant pond without you ever having to unbuckle that belt. Let's move on to my favorite piece of equipment. I don't go into the sky without them, and neither should you. I'm talking about compression stockings. But I don't want you to think of these as old people socks. I want you to think of them as a vascular engine for your lower body. Most doctors will simply tell you, wear compression socks for long flights. It sounds simple enough, like a suggestion to bring a sweater because the cabin gets chilly. Here's something you might not know. Many airlines actually provide amenity kits in business and first class that include thin, flimsy socks. They call them travel socks. But here's the secret. Those socks are almost entirely useless for DVT prevention. They are designed for comfort and cleanliness, not medical-grade compression. The airlines provide them to give you a sense of luxury, but they don't actually meet the MMRG standards required to move blood. They want you to feel pampered, but they aren't necessarily investing in your vascular health with a free pair of polyester booties. As a savvy traveler, you need to look for the numbers. You want graduated compression, specifically in the 15 to 20 millimeter mg range. Graduated is the key word here. It means the sock is tightest at the ankle and gradually loosens as it goes up the calf. This creates a squeegee effect, literally pushing the blood upward. My mother used to struggle with these. Bless her heart, she'd try to pull them on like regular hosiery and end up exhausted before she even left for the airport. The Aleda strategy is the roll and lock. You turn the sock inside out down to the heel, lock your heel into the pocket first, and then roll it up. Never ever let them bunch up at the knee. A bunched up compression sock is actually a tourniquet, and that is the last thing we want at 30,000 feet. Now, let's talk about the galley's most popular request. Can I get a coffee, or I'll take a gin and tonic? I know, it's part of the vacation vibe, but we need to talk about what's happening to your blood volume. The rule you hear is, drink plenty of water and limit alcohol. It's basic health advice you'd hear at a summer picnic. Why does the airline offer free booze on international flights? It's not just hospitality. It's because alcohol is a sedative. A cabin full of sleepy, slightly buzzed passengers is a quiet, easy-to-manage cabin. It reduces the service calls. But there is a high price to pay for that peace. Alcohol is a potent vasodilator, followed by a massive dehydration phase. It makes your blood vessels leaky, causing fluid to move out of your veins and into your tissue, which is why your ankles look like puffed-up marshmallows by the time you land. Your strategy is the 2-for-1 ratio. For every fun beverage you have, whether it's a coffee to wake up or a wine to wind down, you must consume 2 full 8-ounce cups of water. And here is the pro tip from my 12 years in the air. Don't wait for the cart. And this pro tip is reliable and practical. You need to be proactive with the TSA. Now, let's pause on that. The TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. Most people think of them as the liquids police who took away your favorite shampoo in 2006. The history of the TSA is actually quite short. It was created in a whirlwind of legislation following the tragic events of September 11, 2001. Before that, airport security was often handled by private contractors hired by the airlines themselves. The TSA changed the hydration game forever with the 3-1-1 rule. My strategy for you? Bring an empty, high-quality, insulated water bottle through the TSA checkpoint. Once you're in the terminal, find a hydration station and fill it up with room temperature water. Why room temperature? Because cold water can actually cause minor vascular constriction in the stomach. You want your body to absorb that moisture as efficiently as possible, keeping your blood thin and flowing like that mountain stream we talked about earlier. When the flight attendant comes by with the cart, you don't ask for a tiny plastic cup. You ask them to top off your large bottle. We actually love doing this. It's one less cup for us to pick up later. And it shows me that you are a passenger who knows exactly how to take care of yourself. Welcome back, everyone. We're moving into the heart of the journey now, the actual movement. I want you to imagine we're mid-flight. The cabin is settled, and it's time to put our second heart to work. To really understand why I'm about to ask you to wiggle your toes, let's look at 2 of my regulars. First, let's imagine Mr. Miller. He's 72, a retired engineer heading down to Florida for the winter. He's the set-it-and-forget-it type. He gets to the gate early, buys a newspaper, and once he's in seat 14B, he doesn't move until the wheels touch the tarmac. He thinks he's being the perfect passenger by staying out of everyone's way. Now, contrast that with Sarah. Sarah is 68, a former yoga instructor. At the gate, she's the one doing gentle neck rolls while waiting for Group 3 to be called. When the gate agent announces a minor maintenance delay, which, let's be honest, is the airline's code for "we're waiting on a paperwork trail," Mr. Miller sits more rigidly, his ankles crossing, cutting off his own circulation. Sarah, however, uses that time to walk the length of the gate lounge. When they finally board, Mr. Miller's legs are already primed for a clot because he's been sedentary for 2 hours before the flight even started. If I could have pulled Mr. Miller aside in the jetway, I would have told him, "Sir, your flight doesn't start at takeoff. Your circulatory risk starts the moment you leave your house." Once we're at cruising altitude, I want you to follow Sarah's lead. We start with ankle pumps. Flex your feet up toward your shins, then point them down like a ballerina. Do this 20 times. Why? Because your calf muscle is a literal pump. When it contracts, It squeezes the deep veins, forcing blood upward. Here is a bit of bonus advice I give to my own family. The gate is the most dangerous place for your health. Why? Because of the manifest and the pre-boarding rush. Airlines want to get you into that holding pen as fast as possible to ensure an on-time departure. But once you are in those plastic seats, you tend to freeze. My advice for seniors: do not sit down at the gate. You've likely been sitting in the car or the shuttle. Walk. Find the longest concourse and walk it until they call your group. And if the agent says there is a delay, that is a gift. That is 15 more minutes of free circulation. Also, check your footwear at the gate. If your shoes feel tight now, they will be tourniquets in 2 hours. Loosen the laces before you step onto that jetway. It's a small move that saves a lot of swelling later. Most people think DVT is just a leg thing, but your body is a closed loop. If your core is constricted, it doesn't matter how much you pump your ankles. The blood hits a bottleneck at your hips. Think of Mr. Miller again. He's slumped in his seat, his chin on his chest, and his belt is notched tight. He's basically folding his garden hose in half at the waist. Sarah, on the other hand, has her seat back slightly reclined, not enough to annoy the person behind her, but enough to open up the angle of her hips. I want you to perform the diaphragmatic lift. Take a deep breath in through your nose, expanding your belly, not just your chest. As you exhale, pull your belly button toward your spine. This change in internal pressure acts like a vacuum, pulling blood from the lower extremities back toward the heart. Follow this with seated glute squeezes. Squeeze your buttocks tight for 5 seconds, then release. This clears the blood that pools in the pelvic floor during long-duration sitting. Here's something they don't tell you. Anxiety causes physical constriction. When we get nervous, maybe because of a bit of chop or turbulence, we tend to clench. We clench our jaws, our shoulders, and most importantly, our pelvic muscles. For my senior travelers, this clench can lead to what I call in-flight urinary retention. When you hold your breath or tighten your core out of nerves, you're increasing your internal thoracic pressure. This makes it even harder for your heart to pull blood up from your legs. My bonus tip? Use a grounding scent. I'll keep a tiny vial of lavender oil in my apron. Before you start your core exercises, put a drop on your palms and breathe in. It relaxes the nervous system, which in turn opens your veins. A relaxed traveler is a safer traveler, physiologically speaking. Now, let's talk about the great aisle migration. Mr. Miller finally feels his legs go numb. He panics and stands up right when the seatbelt sign is on. Now I have to be the bad guy and tell him to sit down. He gets frustrated. I feel terrible, and his blood stays stagnant. Sarah waits. She watches the cabin flow. She knows that as soon as the meal service is over and the trash has been collected, there is a golden window of about 2 hours where the aisles are clear. When the coast is clear, I want you to walk to the back galley. Don't just go to the bathroom and sit back down. Walk to where we are. We might look busy, but we're actually quite happy to see you moving. Stand near the exit row where there is more floor space and do 10 heel-to-toe rolls. Let's talk about the galley. That's our office. In the history of aviation, the galley has evolved from a small cupboard to a high-tech kitchen capable of heating 300 meals simultaneously. But it's full of sharp edges and hot surfaces. My bonus advice: when you come back to stretch, communicate. Don't just stand silently behind a flight attendant who is reaching into a steam oven. Say, "Hi, Elena. I'm just doing my DVT stretches. I'll stay out of your way." Once I know what you're doing, I might even offer you a vascular treat, which is just a fancy way of saying a bottle of room temperature water. Also, never lean against the emergency exit door. It's perfectly safe, but the handles are sensitive, and it makes us jumpy. Finally, let's look at the uniform. Mr. Miller is wearing his travel suit. It's a bit tight in the waist, and his socks have that elastic ring that leaves a deep indentation in his skin. He looks sharp, but he's essentially wearing a series of mini tourniquets. Sarah is wearing layers. She has loose-fitting bamboo fiber trousers with an elastic waistband and a wraparound cardigan. If your clothes leave a mark on your skin, they are too tight for a long-haul flight. Your blood vessels are under enough pressure from the cabin altitude. Don't add mechanical pressure from your wardrobe. For many of my senior passengers, they might already have peripheral neuropathy, that tingling or numbness in the feet, often associated with diabetes or just aging. On a plane, this is a double whammy, because you might not feel the discomfort of a clot forming due to existing numbness. You have to rely on visual checks. Every time you go to the restroom, I want you to do the Elena inspection. Check your ankles. Are they significantly more puffy than they were at the gate? Is one leg redder than the other? My bonus tip: carry a small compression mirror, or just use your phone's camera to look at the back of your calves. If you can't feel it, you have to see it. I've seen passengers land and realize their shoes don't fit anymore because they lost the feeling 5 hours ago. Don't be like Mr. Miller, waiting for a pain signal that might not come. Be like Sarah, proactive, observant, and dressed for vascular success. We've traveled a long way together in this video, haven't we? From the quiet hum of the galley to the science of your second heart. But as we prepare for our final descent, I want to make sure you have the ultimate safety checklist in your heart and mind. Now, I need you to lean in close for this part. This is the serious talk in the galley. Even if you do everything right, even if you're like Sarah and you stretch and hydrate, biology can sometimes be unpredictable. If you feel a Charlie horse that just won't quit, do not ignore it. On a plane, we often mistake a blood clot for a simple muscle cramp. But a DVT is different. It usually happens in just one leg. Look for the 3 T's: tightness, temperature, is the skin warm to the touch, and tint, is it reddish or discolored? Behind the scenes, we have a medical manifest protocol. If you tell me your leg is swelling and warm, I don't just bring you an aspirin. I discreetly alert the captain. We have a direct satellite link to MedLink, a ground-based service staffed by emergency physicians who specialize in high-altitude medicine. The airline doesn't want to divert a flight unless it's a true emergency, but they also don't want a medical event on their watch. We are trained to assess you without causing a panic in the cabin. If you suspect a clot mid-flight, do not rub it. I know the instinct is to massage the cramp out, but if that is a clot, massaging it can break it loose and send it toward your lungs. Instead, stay still, call me over, and keep that leg elevated. And if you feel sudden shortness of breath or a sharp pain when you breathe in, that is an immediate press the call button moment. That's a potential pulmonary embolism, and every second counts. The biggest myth in travel is that once you step off the jet bridge, the danger is over. In my 12 years, I've learned that the first 24 hours on the ground are actually the high-risk zone. Keep the Elena routine going for a full day after landing. Your blood doesn't instantly thin out just because you're at sea level. Airlines focus their safety messaging on the flight itself because that's where their legal liability is highest. Once you pass through those sliding glass doors at arrivals, you're on your own. But the physiology of Hunnel concentration, that thickening of the blood we talked about, can take 24 to 48 hours to fully normalize. When you get to your hotel or your grandkid's house, don't just collapse into a soft armchair. Take a 20-minute walk. Keep those compression socks on until you go to bed. And most importantly, stay hydrated. Your first night ritual should involve a large glass of water and 5 minutes of those ankle pumps we practiced earlier. If you wake up the next morning and one leg is significantly more swollen than the other, you head to an urgent care immediately. An ultrasound is a simple, zero-risk test that can save your life. Looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, the world of travel is changing so fast. We're seeing smart seats that will eventually monitor your circulation, and biometric boarding that reduces the stress of the TSA shuffle. But technology is only as good as the person using it. I truly believe that staying informed is the best way to stay young. When you understand the why behind your health, you aren't just a passenger. You're the pilot of your own well-being. As I continue my work as a travel consultant, I've embraced a bit of new technology myself. This digital version of my experience, what you're watching right now, allows me to reach thousands of you at once. While I can't be on every flight to hand you a bottle of water, this digital Elena can sit with you in your living room, coaching you for your preparations. This AI technology isn't here to replace the human touch. I'll always miss the smiles in the galley. But it acts as a force multiplier for safety. It takes 12 years of my galley wisdom, cross-references it with the latest medical data from 2026, and delivers it to you in a way that's easy to digest. It's my way of making sure that no traveler, no matter their age, feels cramped by fear or lack of knowledge. If you remember nothing else from our time together today, remember these 3 things. Your calf is a pump. If you aren't moving it, the blood isn't moving. Hydration is armor. Thin blood flows, thick blood clots. Pacing is everything. Move slowly, breathe deeply, and dress loosely. It has been an absolute honor to walk and fly through this routine with you. You have the tools, you have the socks, and now you have the Elena authority. Your adventure is just beginning. Let's fly right.